Professor of Capital Markets and Director of Research at the Securities and Exchange Commission, Professor Uche Uwaleke, is live to us from our Abuja studios to continue the conversation around President Buhari's confirming reappointment of Godwin Emefiele as the central bank chief for another 5-year term. So, Professor, let's look at where President Buhari would want to go with his socio-economic policies and agenda and actions over the next 4 years. So, Godwin Emefiele's reappointment, sending the letter to the Senate yesterday, says, well, he's a major move since he got his own re-election at the polls in February this year. So, what does he say about what the nature of the cabinet that President Buhari would want to have in his second term? How crucial do you think his mindset is about keeping Emefiele at the central bank while he's yet to release the names of other cabinet members?
Yes, I think it goes to support the even the view of Mr. President himself and what he's wishing to do in his second term. I recall not too long ago in one of the speeches he gave, he talked about his desire to leave a legacy in his second term, and this is one, for me, one pointer to the fact that he intends to do just that by, as I said earlier on, getting a round peg in a round hole. And I see the next cabinet too, the new cabinet, to be a rainbow of not just politicians but also technocrats, people who are competent. And of course, when we have that in place, you can be sure that the economy will get a lot of traction. So Emefiele's case, has just confirmed that the president is likely to go beyond tribal and religious sentiments, even beyond the political party leanings, in appointing his new cabinet in line, consistent with what he has just said, that he wants to leave a legacy. And I am pretty sure too that since Emefiele has now been reappointed, that all those people-centered policies, pro-growth policies, will continue. Talking about those interventions that the central bank has been making. So I want to see those interventions scaled up as much as possible. And of course, I also want to see the fiscal authorities working with the monetary authorities to bring about a low interest rate environment in the economy, and to also ensure that SMEs continue to have increased access to to credit. That is critical. But that again does not mean that we should jettison some of the policies that are also in place just to allow things to come in. I'm referring to the policy that the central bank or the measure the central bank brought in, which has now helped a lot in even encouraging employment. The idea of the 41 items, now 43 items, was meant to encourage import substitution, and to a large extent, you could say that has happened. Some of the items that on that list that we are hitherto not being produced in Nigeria, we understand are being produced here now. Take the case of rice, for example. The imports of rice has substantially reduced. We understand, and that has of course rubbed off positively on our foreign reserves. So that we have forex accretion, external reserves accretion today, is not just because oil price is going up, but it's also because of some of the demand management measures the central bank has also done to ensure that external reserves don't go down. And
just a quick one here.
At another level too.
Professor,
level too, it also helps to position Nigeria. The Emefiele's appointment will position Nigeria to continue to champion the single currency initiative of the ECOWAS sub-region. Remember that in November last year, or sometime in September last year, Emefiele was elected the chairman of the West African Monetary Zone. And what that means is that the convergence criteria, by the member states, he will continue to champion it.
Professor Uwaleke, a quick one here. Permit me to interject here, Professor, about the focus here, if you look at where we're coming from, as far as Emefiele's journey was, and you find out that, yes, there was a major oil price decline, then he came in, then we had the financial, we had the FX crisis and all of that, then the economic recession. So retaining him for another 5 years and looking at all the talks and postulations or forecasts or outlook about where the global economy is heading, do you think, or you think that Mr. President must have taken all this on board to say, look, if Godwin Emefiele could steer the monetary and the fiscal side together, balancing things for the last 3 years, is the man to put on a standby just in case some of the not so good outlook on the global economy begin to materialize?
Yes, I quite agree with you. That must be at the back of the president's mind. Don't forget that in all of this, it is Nigeria first. It is our interest first. That's against the backdrop of what the international community wants us, to do. The IMF in particular, asking Nigeria to, for example, completely liberalize the, forex market. That's another way of saying we should float the naira. And the question is whether we can float the naira, at this point in time. So reappointing Emefiele will ensures that we will continue to put Nigeria's interest first, and we will do things only when the circumstances permit them. It is not in the interest of the country to begin to do some of those things that these international monetary organizations want Nigeria to do, now, particularly with respect to monetary policy. The IMF would want Nigeria to continue to tighten monetary policy, but of course, that the central bank has signaled its intention to continue to pursue an accommodative monetary policy. The accommodative monetary policy is something that will further, spur growth, get the economy to, have more traction. At GDP growth rate of 1.9% last year, 0.7, the year before, for us to really leapfrog, we have to put in place a lot of measures to do that. And tightening monetary policy at this point in time will not be the way forward. So it's good that the central bank is recognizing that we need to have a low interest rate regime environment, beginning with the benchmark interest rate, the policy interest rate. So the president must have recognized, all this, and that it's important you put someone there who also is thinking along the same line with the president, who is sharing the same vision, with the president of having people-centered the policies, in place, as opposed to getting somebody there who ponders, to the whims and caprices of the International Monetary Authority. You could get somebody there, and he wakes up one morning and flows the naira, and then we'll begin to bear the consequences, especially, in the short run. So okay, the economy is not in a position to absorb some of those recommendations being made by the IMF. And Governor Emefiele recognizes that. The president realizes that. And that is why the president is having somebody who shares in his vision. So I think even if something happens in the world economy tomorrow, because we are not strongly linked to the world economy, we may not be, the direct impact may not be significant.
Okay, so
as long as
in terms of
necessary buffers to absorb that.
In terms of the last 4 years under President Buhari, in terms of the financial system, those were, if you take the Ministry of Finance, you take the central bank, you have the debt management office with Patience Oniha and all the and other members of the team. With this team, do you think they've done a good job supporting Mr. President and helping this administration find its footing, whether with rapid Eurobond borrowings, deepening the market, the financial market space, and all that, and helping, of course, the government to balance its books in a very tight period, all of that with the central bank, who is in charge of the bag of money at the middle of them all?
Yes, to be able to answer that question correctly, you have to also put that in context, the background, where we are coming from, the fact that this economy went through, a recession in the first in 29 years, okay, and the fact that it wasn't just a recession that, we had. The country experienced stagflation, okay. The GDP was declining. At the same time, unemployment was rising. At the same time, inflation was rising. So it was something that even the monetary authorities and the fiscal authorities had difficulty, dealing with because of the twin problems that we had. So that's the background. Now, if you now look at where we are today, okay, the fact that at least the economy has resumed on a positive trajectory, the growth path, as I said earlier on, last quarter was 2.38% growth. Okay, the fact that inflation has come down substantially, the fact that reserves, which at one point, external reserves was less than $26 per barrel. Today we are talking about $44 billion per barrel. So these are the indicators. Purchasing Managers Index, has also been on the rise. The major snag remains the unemployment rate, which has also been rising. Which for me, going forward, the focus, should be on. So I think the team has, done well, relatively well, to bring about macroeconomic stability. Now, talking about the public debt stock, yes, of course, it's beginning to assume a worrisome dimension. 24.3 trillion naira public debt. But if you look at the size of the economy, that's not a problem really. Debt to GDP ratio of about 20%. But the challenge has always been the fact that we are not generating enough revenue to be able to, swallow, if you like, the debt service, to be able to make it, a little of a problem. And that is why the concern now is the debt service to revenue ratio, which is as high as 67%. So the government focus, and I'm sure that has been recognized, is to see how the revenue base can further be widened, whether through diversifying the export base or even the ramping up the IGR. So once we're able to diversify our export base and get more revenue, then the issue of debt service, won't be an issue. That is where you now see that the debt we are talking about, is not really, a problem, especially when you compare us with peer countries where debt to GDP ratio is quite high. So the point I'm making is, yes, there's a debt burden issue, and that debt burden issue is the fact that debt service revenue is high, and it has been recognized that the effort should be on ramping up revenue. And I also want to say that the economic team, whether it's the Debt Management Office or the Ministry of Finance, trying to borrow, there's no problem with borrowing per se. The important thing is that we should put those debts to good use. And the good news is that some of the ones they have done in recent times have also been put to projects. The Sukuk bonds, of course, are strictly project tied. And I can also tell you that the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is also part of that, the regulatory bodies in the financial system, has done a lot to improve investor confidence and to protect investors. What you find happening now in this financial market, particularly the stock market, is simply legacy issues. The stock market is still feeling cold. It's still the effect of what has been happening on the global scene, in particular the U.S. Fed interest normalization, which happened much of last year. The China-U.S. trade tension, the uncertainties around Brexit. So these are what we have seen on the external fronts impacting on the stock market.
A final one, Professor Waleke. I final one here, a quick one on the markets where you're stepping into, Professor. Just to wrap it up in about 2 minutes. Folks are on social media, on Twitter right now, and they say, look, this is an appointment, okay, but we want some catalyst for the marketplace, like equity market, for example. So you're a professor of capital markets. What more would you like to see from Godwin Emefiele's second term and President Buhari's second term to give the equities market a very major jump? Do you think the next week's listing by introduction of MTN Nigeria PLC is one step in that direction, or is the key to unlock that door?
Absolutely, Boasin. Of course, in the very short run, the triggers we expect in the market include the fact that the market is excited about the MTN listing. We also expect that once the cabinet is formed and the right people are there, it will also grow investors' confidence. Another trigger is also the 2019 budget. Thank God it has been passed. Once the president assents and implementation begins, that will also be a trigger. It will tell investors that at least there's clarity in the policy direction of the government. So these are short-term triggers. But of course, in the medium to long term, it is the economy that will really influence performance of the stock market. If we have enabling infrastructure that will attract investors, in Nigeria, if on the part of the central bank, if SMEs have increased access to credit, you will find that, of course, affecting the bottom line of companies, and of course, you have a positive impact, on the equities market. So it is the economy that we really mirror, we really determine the direction of the stock market going forward. And I am optimistic, that a lot of things, the foundation, has been laid, and going forward, I see this market rebounding. I keep saying it's third quarter of this year, especially after results are released halfway by the second quarter. Part of what we also see happening now is the effect of relative weak corporate results we saw in the first quarter. So the market is likely to rebound third quarter, and I also see that sustained, especially as government continues to invest in agriculture, continues to invest in infrastructure. All that will have a positive impact, on our market, given the fact that the valuations for many, still remain good. So investors will turn to Nigeria in no distant time. I don't have any doubt about that.
Professor, Godwin Emefiele will have the privilege and honor of saying goodbye to his boss, Mr. President, by the year 2023, because he'll still be there for a couple of months more into his 5-year tenure. Yeah. So how critical do you think Emefiele's second term, or Godwin Emefiele, should take this second term reappointment and confidence reposed in him by Mr. President, first for keeping him from Jonathan's administration, and most likely keeping him there for the next president and the next administration? How important do you think Godwin Emefiele should think about his position straddling technically 3 administrations?
Yes, the good thing is that I'm sure the monetary, he has already keyed into the vision of Mr. President as, as contained in the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. I talked about first ensuring macroeconomic stability. So he should continue to work along those paths, and he should also realize, and I'm sure he does, that the president is someone, going by my reading, that has the interest of the masses at heart. So he should also focus on people-centered, policies in line with what the president wants.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Uche Owaleke. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. Let's leave it there for today. Thank you so much. It's a Friday. Enjoy the rest of your day and the weekend. Let's go back to the marketplace in 2 minutes.